Thank you all so much. How are you?
Good.
This is exciting for me. My name is Andrew McGregor. I'm the co-founder of basically a pop-up art museum. We're calling the Museum of Art Made by Animals. And this is our inaugural event. First time ever. It was like a dream in our minds. And so what I love about LA is that the dreams in the minds occasionally become the fruit on the vine, so to speak. And thank you all for coming and making that fruit real. And also thank you to our host, the Hall of Theosophy. This theater was basically unused for 30 years. So now there's this great crew of people striving to make it a culturally relevant and vital force in Los Angeles again. So Theosophy and Ann and Justin. All right. So who here knows what an animal is?
Us.
Whoa, biased crowd. All right, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, and then I'm going to speak, and then you know how it goes. This is my humble joy to introduce my fellow co-founder in the Museum of Art Made by Animals, but he's also a PhD who is the head of the Comparative Cognition Lab at the illustrious UCLA. And why is an incredible man, and I'm so excited to help you learn from him as I've been blessed to learn from him. Aaron, come on.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. I am here because pigeons now make art, and that seems kind of weird. But I want to tell you a little bit about pigeons, why they're actually really cool, and then I want to tell you a little bit about why my pigeons are making art, how they do it. All right, a couple of starting videos here. You all know what a pigeon looks like when it's bobbing its head, walking along on the ground. Not always the most graceful creature, but they're cute. But some people find them annoying, maybe. But we also know, and here in LA, we often see beautiful displays of flocks of pigeons gracefully flying through the sky and turning on a dime, all as a single group. And so it's really beautiful to see this little bobbing thing on the ground, poking its head around. But then when it takes flight, it's amazing. Apologies for the clicker. It's a little bit inaccurate. Okay. I wanted to talk about the story of pigeons and where the kind of pigeon that we think of as a street pigeon, the and a homing pigeon, and the kind that carry notes and everything, that kind of pigeon really have been among us, among humans, since the dawn of civilization and the agricultural revolution. So when humans started really doing agricultural practices, it wasn't lettuce, it wasn't broccoli, it was mostly grain, right? So all the grain belts, rice in Asia, corn in the Americas, wheat, barley, large fields of grain that were harvested and stored in granaries and places like that. Well, pigeons are grain or seed eating birds. So, of course, we started collecting bird seed and storing it in big quantities. Of course, pigeons are then going to follow us along wherever we go. So, it was at that point that humans and pigeons became kind of melded together to be a one mega species. And the pigeon is actually a domesticated species. It is not a wild species. So, all the pigeons you see outside here in LA are really feral pigeons. Just like if you see a dog on its own, that's a feral dog. Pigeons also are a domesticated species. They originally hail from the Mediterranean region, North Africa, the southern part of Europe, and into Asia. And they're also known as the rock dove because the pointer really works. Oh, I didn't want to go. Anyway, yeah, we can go back. So you see that they're nesting, or they're standing on the buildings, right? Like on the side of stone and concrete buildings. That's because they nest in rock-faced cliffs. That's where they're not on the ground, but they build their nest normally up above in rock faces and things like that along the Mediterranean Sea. So a rock dove. They've been depicted in human art over the millennia, going back to the ancient Roman Greek times, ancient Arabic times, Chinese, through the medieval, and then of course a lot of modern and contemporary artists, famously Picasso and his Dove of Peace. A dove, a piece, a dove is a pigeon. A pigeon is a dove. They're just two different etymologies of their origin of the word, but they mean the same kind of animal. What do pigeons think of human art? Or our cars? It turns out also that pigeons have all these different breeds. Just like with dogs, there are all these different breeds of dogs. And believe it or not, most of the different breeds of dogs we have today, poodles, chihuahuas, Great Danes, are all invented through artificial selection just within the past 100 years or so. Pigeons breeding actually goes back a few hundred years at least, and there are all kinds of show pigeons, fancy pigeons, fantails, ones with really crazy things around their head, like the Jacobin, like it's wearing some fur coat, and pigeons that do acrobatics, and then homing pigeons that can fly back home from a release site, maybe 50, 100 miles away. All of those traits, the visual traits and the behavioral traits, have been bred for, selected for by humans. And there are these amazing pigeon shows where you can go and see all kinds of shows, and they're judged just like in a dog show, judged by appearance or by their behaviors. And it's not just that all these breeds of pigeon are interesting just as entertainment. They also inspired. They're one of the things that inspired Darwin to come up with this theory of evolution by natural selection. Yes, we all know about the voyage around the world, stopping at the Galapagos Islands, seeing all the diversity of species there, especially of like the finches and the different kind of beaks they had, that they were fit to the kind of foods they were eating. That was one of the early inspirations for him to give planting the seed of the idea of evolution by natural selection, that the environment is kind of choosing and selecting for traits in a species. He got back to England after that voyage, and he started joining some pigeon associations in London and learning about the different breeds of pigeons. And in fact, he fills a significant part of the first chapter on the origin of species with his talking about these breeding different types of pigeons, and how this was continued inspiration for him to understand how we shape the traits of different species, and that again served as a model for natural selection. And that's a figure from his chapter one of his book. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry. I clicked twice. So can I go back a slide? Thanks. Pigeons, as a lot of people know, can be used to deliver messages, to carry. You could tie a piece of paper, strap it to their leg, let them fly off, and they'll fly back home. So these usually homing pigeons that are used for this. You take the pigeon from the place where it grew up and is kind of imprinted on that location. You can go off in any direction, many miles, tens, hundreds of miles. No, how many hundreds, but pretty far, and release them, and they will fly back home. And so that makes them very useful to bring with you across enemy lines when you're in battle and you want to get a message back to the home front. You put the note on the pigeon and release it. And so pigeons have been used for military, and they've been used for the news about Napoleon's defeat was sent by pigeon across Europe. The first, and not just the war, but other kinds of situations too, like the first Olympics back in ancient Greece was announced by pigeon. And this is a really interesting fact. Gustav was a pigeon who flew over 372 miles and with an average speed of 83.6 miles per hour. So they can fly pretty fast and they can fly pretty far. Stock prices. What does pigeons have to do with stock prices? Well, it turns out back in the mid 1850s, there was, oh gosh, I'm sorry, there we go. And that this guy had pigeons in this location between Brussels in Belgium and Aachen in Germany. And this is at a time when there was a telegraph system that went from Paris all the way to Berlin. They were connected all across Europe, especially for stock prices in Paris. to be able to get to other places where people were doing stock trading. And people in Berlin wanted to get these, really quick updates on stock prices so they do better decisions at picking stocks. Well, it turns out there was this break between Brussels and Aachen, Germany, where they hadn't laid down the telegraph line yet. So this guy had pigeons in Aachen. He would every day bring some pigeons to Brussels, and as the telegraph information came in of the stock prices, he would write it down, put it on a pigeon leg, release it. It would go back to Aachen, where the pigeon was from. The guy there would take the message and relay it the rest of the way to Berlin. So it was kind of this intermediary connection before they were able to complete the lines. So it turns out that this guy's name what was his name? His name. Oh, Israel Josephat. Now, there was even anti-Semitism back then, and so he ended up moving to England. This was after he had been doing pigeons in Germany and Brussels. Changed his name to Paul Julius Reuter and started a news agency. So when you hear about reported by Reuters, that was born on the wings of pigeons. They are the original biotech drones. They've been used in Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul, as I was mentioning. They were used to relay messages. In World War I and World War II, we used them heavily for messages. And in fact, there's an image of a picture of somebody taking pigeons into the field so that they could be released and send messages back to the home front. Pigeons have received medals of honor for helping with real victories in battle. And even over there on the right side, you see a pigeon with a camera strapped to his chest and two pictures, aerial photographs that were taken by pigeons that they could fly over areas that of the enemy, where they wanted to get photographs of it. And B.F. Skinner used pigeons as well. He's the first psychologist to bring pigeons into behavioral research. So people in psychology back in the early 20th century have been using dogs like Pavlov. Rats were a common model, monkeys. But B.F. Skinner at Harvard University in the 30s was using rats, but he also decided that a pigeon would be a good subject too because they were a domesticated species, easy to keep in captivity, and they will work for food, like the birdseed. So they can have these operant chambers where you have these key lights, and they could learn to peck at a light when it lights up. And you could use that to study aspects of the behavioral, like reinforcement learning. If you reinforce a pigeon a certain way for pecking a certain way or a certain number of times or in a certain sequence, can they learn to do it? And it turns out that even our AI algorithms, when you hear about reinforcement learning, that all was inspired by the kind of reinforcement learning that started in Skinner's lab in Harvard in pigeons. And he did, just to prove a point, he wanted to show how you can get quite complex behavior to emerge through these simple processes of reinforcing actions. And so here's the video.
Two pigeons are at either end of a small ping pong table. One pigeon pecks the ball as it comes toward him and knocks it toward the other pigeon. The other pigeon pecks the ball back across the table. If it goes past one pigeon, the other pigeon can eat, and if it goes the other way, the other pigeon eats. So it's a real game. The pigeon is reinforced for a cross-court shot if that is what gets the ball past his opponent.
So there you go. And that was Skinner narrating that little news clip from a while ago. So pigeons can be trained to play ping pong. Now, are they really playing ping pong intentionally, or are they just trying to get the ball over the other side so they can get food? What's the difference, really? Another thing he got involved with during World War II was to see if he could train pigeons to guide a missile to an enemy ship. Right, so we were trying all kinds of technology in World War II to develop because they hadn't figured out the homing yet for self-guided missiles. And so Skinner actually was in a project training pigeons to peck at a picture of a ship on a screen, and they would And there's some video online you can see if you look this up. It's called Project Pigeon. If you look it up, you'll find videos online of pigeons pecking at the image of the ship on the screen. And as the image goes off one direction, the pigeon's pecking at it, and it causes the image to go back. They attach that screen, the touch screen, to a guidance system on the missile, and it'll keep the missile on course. They fortunately never deployed these kamikaze pigeons, but it was a success in the sense that they did learn to use this control mechanism. And it turns out that this is a nice pivot into my research and what I do in my lab, because a few years ago, Netflix, producers for Netflix had come to me wanting to do a reenactment of Project Pigeon, a conceptual reenactment. And so we wanted to do, and it was on an episode about crazy World War II weapons, and this was one of 6 that they did in their episode. And so I trained pigeons in my box at UCLA to peck at a screen where there was a picture of a little target, like a concentric circle target on there. I spent about 2 weeks training 3 pigeons to peck at the target, big target, small target, here, there, until they were really good at wherever the target appeared, they would peck at it. Then on the day of the filming, I took those pigeons, put them in my van, drove across LA to downtown LA to this big space, like about 2 or 3 times the size of this room, where they had a setup for doing the filming. Now I'm going to show you the video, a short video clip of the pigeon guiding a drone. So now what they had was in this big space, they had a drone with a camera on it. The drone is pointed toward that target on the far end of the space, and the camera fed into the box where the pigeon was. The pigeon looks at the feed from the drone, and if it sees a target, it should start pecking at it, and that'll guide the drone to the target. So let's see if it worked. And that's one of the pigeons, one of the 3. Pecking, and then it's periodically getting food from a little food hopper. Remarkably, all 3 pigeons worked really well. They had never been in this place before. They had never been in a box that was open with a cameraman going around them this whole time. And they were just like troopers, literally. And it worked. It was a really cool episode. All right, success. That was the drum. Thank you. Thanks. Nope, I'm not done. There we go. Sorry, but thank you for that. So yeah, that was pre-COVID when we had done that, filmed that. Let's get into like what I do. How did they find me in the first place? Why did they know this crazy professor in LA who studies pigeons with touchscreens? Here's a picture of one of my operant chambers with a pigeon in it on the right. Here's a picture of 6 of my many pigeons I have in my colony at UCLA. I'm interested in the animal mind. The pigeon is one animal I use in my research, and they're as good a model as any to study what goes on in the mind of an animal. And in part, pigeons are very useful because, like monkeys or humans, they could touch specifically at locations on a display. And you could put a complex display, simple displays, and instead of using a finger, of course, they use their beak. But it's a nice point response. So we can have them peck at locations on the screen and learn to do things in a way that tells us about how they learn, how their memory works, how their rational thought or inference making works. For example, with this particular display here, it had an array of neat circles on the screen. And the pigeons had to learn a simple rule to get fed. They had to peck these circles in a sequence. And for example, let's talk about this upper circle as circle number 1, and then going clockwise 2 and 3. They had to learn 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6. You see there's a pattern kind of emerging there. After 4, 5, 6, what would be the next one?
5, 6, 7.
1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6.
5, 6, 7.
5, 6, 7. You do 3 in a row, then you go back 1, do another 3, and then go back 1, and do another 3. So 1, 2, 3, back 1, 2, 3, 4. They learned it. And how do we know that they learned it? We give them occasionally one of the places on there, they get a violation. Instead of 1, 2, 3, it's 1, 2, 1, like a trill, going forward and backward. And they always messed up at that location because they were trying to apply the 1, 2, 3 rule. So we have evidence that they abstract structure from their world around them. They're quite intelligent. They can play video games in the service of questions. Here, let me see if I can get this operating. Here we go. So this is Harriet, one of our pigeons. She's also an artist. She's playing Pac-Man. She's pecking at the Pac-Man that causes these guides to appear. If she pecks the guide to the right, the Pac-Man moves to the right. If she can get the Pac-Man over to the banana, she gets some food. So, pigeons playing Pac-Man. And we had a phase where they had to navigate the Pac-Man. They couldn't get it to the banana because there's a barrier, of this digital barrier around it. They had to go through a portal. That pops like in Pac-Man, if you go out one side, you pop out the other side. They learned to do that too, and deploy them only when they were supposed to deploy them. So we were studying problem-solving behavior in pigeons. Sometimes they get them wrong. This one, Harry was struggling a little bit with some of these, but she eventually learned really well. Takes a moment for this to work on the video sometimes. There we go. So, a few years ago, 2021, May actually, oops, I clicked too many times. Can I go back to slide, please? Oh, okay. Darwin, one of our famous pigeons, one of the ones from the Netflix show, this is a picture of her here, one of her artworks. She was just doing a regular task, like the Pac-Man task or some memory task. At the end of the session, we usually just wait for us to take them out and put them back in their own cage. Somehow, she picked somewhere on the screen that opened up Microsoft Paint and then made that artwork on the right. And the grad student who went to get her that day, she's like, what the? Took a picture of it and showed me the picture. And I was, at the time, I was getting into NFTs. I was like, oh, all about NFTs back in 2021. And she shows me this picture, and I'm like, I have the light bulb and everything. We gotta give them a program where it lets them make art, and then we could sell them as NFTs, and then that money could support the pigeon research. So we started doing that. We started letting them make art. Thank you, Darwin. She is a star. I'm telling you. All right. So how does this art program work? We have a couple of different programs. Actually, after this, if you want to go out, and I have a station set up which has one of our programs working. You can make your own art, and then I'll email it to you later. But for example, in the first project we did, we set it so that the pigeon, any two places it would peck, there we go, it would create a line or a shape. And then over every 60 seconds, we can change the color, the line width, or whether it's a line or a polygon. And here's some different artwork from some of our pigeons. And so it produced these different beautiful, colorful shape patterns on the screen. And then we saved each one of those. And so that as long as they just keep pecking around and engaging, choose where they're pecking, and then it auto-populates in the background with the kind of color and shape. So we did release that as an art collection a couple of years ago. Sorry, the pointer is a little bit finicky. The clicker, I mean. Can you advance one slide, please? Yes. Thanks. Oh, yeah, it froze up. I was probably clicking too fast. Yeah, great. So then we have we have a video showing you Harriet, one of our pigeons, doing this task. I apologize for the early jerky nature of this video. We didn't have a good video set up at the time, but we wanted to capture one of the pigeons making the artwork. But you see, like, she's engaged. She'll peck at the screen, a mark appears, she's kind of looking back and forth, decide where to place the next mark. And they could spend up to an hour doing this, actually. And they're not getting fed for this. They've already eaten for the day. And then they just get to do this for fun. And a lot of them, and all the art we could see was not food motivated. It was intrinsically. So we released a collection of 295 artworks from 27 different pigeons in my lab as a nice our Genesis NFT collection. Those are a little display of a bunch of the artworks, a collage. And then we have a second program. That's the one that's on display outside and on the walls here. We call it our stained glass collection. So this one is kind of similar, but what we like about this one, we designed it so we can actually collect data and do data analysis on the behavioral data. This one works similar to the other one, where 2 places that you peck on the screen makes a line. And what we have is, could you advance one more? Thanks. If it creates this polygon, enclosed polygon, then there's another program running in the background that automatically fills it with some randomized color. And so if they keep engaging and making lines, they're going to start making colorful patterns on the screen. And so on and so forth. Here we go. This is Yoshi in the process of making one of his artworks. And we have some of Yoshi's artwork on display here too. Gets a little excited. And sometimes flapping the wings will even fill in the artwork, as you saw there. So let's see, I want to kind of wrap up in a minute. I don't want to take up too much time. Could you forward one? Oh, that's fine. And thanks. So here's some examples, but of course you see on the wall behind you more examples. And yeah, is it just freezing up? Oh yeah, maybe I'll just say go advance a slide, and that way it'll be better. Okay, so here, for example, is one of the we're answering scientific questions with these now. We're trying to say, like, what is the artwork telling us? What are they doing in making this art? So is it, one of the questions, is it random, or are they like intentionally putting text on the screen? And we could do an analysis of the bounce, temporal bounce, and temporal and spatial bounce. Can you hit the down button just to start the video? There we go. Hit it one more time. Oh, it's not playing. That's okay. Well, basically what we showed is that the pecking is non-random. They're clustered in intentional clusters. And could you go down again? Oh, it's just breathing. Another thing we studied was we took the artworks from 5 of our very prolific pigeons, ones that have made a lot of artwork, and we trained up a machine learning model to classify artwork from the 5 pigeons. So this is pigeon 1's art, pigeon 2's art. And then we tested that classifier, that machine learning classifier, on withheld artworks from those same 5 pigeons and say, can you get the right pigeon from these? And it was 60% accurate in its first choice as being to the correct pigeon. So there's stylistic differences. The way that they're engaging with making art is individually distinct. So pigeons love to make art. They have individual styles. The paint programs are all open source. We have everything on GitHub. It's available to use with other species, and we want to work with like zoos or people who have pets to put this in their hands too. And the real big question is, what does the animal art tell us about ourselves? And eventually what Andrew and I would like to do is also show that pigeon art can be for pigeons, and maybe have an installation where pigeons get to look at the art made by their fellows. And I'll end it there. So thank you so much. Andrew.
Magnificent. Please give a round of applause. Thank you. And Aaron will be around after our next presentation, so please talk to him. And he's more approachable than your average pigeon, I assure you. Waka waka. All right. So the kind of aegis and new organization that's all in the umbrella is the Museum of Art Made by Animals. It's something Aaron and I kind of put together after a scientific conference or during a scientific conference. And basically we show art made by animals, ergo the pigeon art, and it's on the wall. And again, feel free to talk to Aaron about collecting it and all that. But then we also show artifacts made by animals in nature. So we have a booth of seashells and wasp nests and birds' nests back there. Please explore, be tactile, do that like tight pull exercise, and take a seashell home. It's a gift of MAMBA to you. And then the other part we do is we have humans create beautiful visuals and beautiful audio based on data from studying animals. So that's kind of the three tiers of the MAMBA Drive. And our goal, if you want to join our mission, is to seg from pop-ups like this, thank you again to the Theosophy Hall, into a permanent location. So that LA will be the home of MAMBA, which I feel, Kobe Love and all that, but Museum of Animals Made by Art will have a thing. So anyone wants to help or get involved, just talk to me or Aaron, and thank you again. Onwards. Right. Oh, and then our next upcoming project, dovetailing waka waka off of Aaron, is we are making an apparatus where a human and a pigeon can make art at the same time, so they can collaborate on the same piece together. So basically, there's a touchscreen display back there you're free to play with, and we hope you do. And then there'll be a pigeon on the other side of that. And so the pigeon will pack, the human will pack, and you will be co-creating together, which I think is quite neat. So that's another thing. If you want to host a pigeon art party, we can do that. Huzzah! All right. So, what's this pigeon nonsense? Why are we here? Pigeons making art. It's nonsense. What? Like, my dog's cute, but it's not an artist. So this I actually believe in this quote, which ties in well, but it's from Alphonse Mucha, the great Art Nouveau artist. And the notion of modern art as a passing fashion is an insult. Art is as eternal as man's progress, and its function is to guide man's path with light. Therefore, art is in a continuous state of development, and it is always a few steps ahead of humanity. This is from the Epic of the Swab, a 20-piece thing he made after he left his commercial work in Paris. And it's a masterpiece. It's in the Czech Republic. But yeah, so art should actually drive humanity forward. It should be at that kind of litmus area beyond the present. And I will, make a case that pigeons can help us do that. Right. And so since Darwin, not the Darwin from Aaron's Pigeon Lab, but Darwin, the great naturalist, there's been this kind of desire to define what is human. What makes us uniquely us, since we're all connected to animals, right? Pre-evolutionary ideas, there's various ideas of, we no longer circle the sun, and this kind of evolution as the church came out of the natural sciences. And then a few kind of key moments, was tool use, right? So people are like, well, humans use tools, moi. And then your crows did it, and then chimpanzees were shown to fetch termites that way. And then kind of more recently, and then what's also sinking into how AI is going into our lives was, chess. For decades, chess was considered pure rationality, and that's why IBM spent so much money trying to, or actually defeating Garry Kasparov, was to prove the supremacy of the machine intelligence. And so now that we don't have chess, the crows took our tool job, AI is coming. What is it that defines us as a uniquely human thing, right? Why not just revert to cannibalism? Anyone? I don't know either. But art's an idea, right? So humans can do art still. Wow. Other way, please. Buggers. I inverted the clicker. That was my bad choice. Right. So what is art? And so when we go back into kind of human society, we have cave paintings, right? There's these beautiful 36,000-year-old, kind of the classic example in Chaux-Pont-d'Or, cave in France. And then more recently, these were discovered in Indonesia, and these are at least 51,000 years old. So humans have been doing some kind of art for at least 50,000 years. And these are just what remains. There could have been kind of sandcastle cultures that we don't know about, but that's for the last 50,000 years. And then there's an interesting idea of like, where did writing come from and why did writing start? And one of the interesting ideas is that kind of the cave art idea emerged into what's called proto-writing and cuneiform. And proto-writing is defined as writing that's like a tablet. Like this symbol here means jar, right? So this doesn't replicate a spoken language. If you gave that tablet to a Sumerian, it would look like a receipt, basically. And then it wasn't until approximately like 1,600 years later that the first kind of, I found this amazing, the first known personal letter emerged, also in cuneiform. I'm just going to kind of read you a bit of it. So, yeah. Tell Ianasi, Nani sends the following message. When you came, you said to me as follows. I will give Gibbelson, when he comes, fine quality copper ingots. You left them, but you have not done what you promised me. You put ingots which were not good before my messenger, Sitsin, and said, if you want to take them, take them. If you do not want to take them, go away. What do you take me for, that you treat somebody like me with such contempt? And it goes on like that for kind of pages. And that's literally the first personal letter we have. There were like messages from the king and such, but I find it amazing that everyone who complains about restaurants on Yelp, maybe 3,000 years hence, like it'll just be cheese fries or whack. That's all we'll know. But anyway, so my point in all this is that, we assume humans are intelligent, right? That's one of our things. And then we're kind of, as per Aaron, learning where we share our intelligence. But we evolved to our current state of intelligence being Homo sapiens about 300,000 years ago. And then writing, including personal letters about ingots and such, was about 3,000 years ago. And then the receipts were prior to that would be a cuneiform. And then so, just kind of a bit of an aside, but so much of modern civilization's determination of our fates is based on how well we can read and write. But that's actually not what we biologically are or evolutionary are. So we were really intelligent survivors for a much longer period of time. But yeah, just want to throw that out there. And then, back to the art. So we look at cave art, we're like, that's the art. And then did the cave art evolve into proto-writing and then ultimately writing? Back to the pigeons. So this is all tying it together. The earliest known relationship with pigeons was from a Neanderthal colony on the Gotham's Cave of the Rock of Gibraltar, which I really want to go to now. And it was from Neanderthals that were eating them about 67,000 years ago. So these are the bones from the rock doves that show that Neanderthals cutting and eating them. And so basically this means that, as per Aaron's point, we've had millennia of relationships with pigeons, and not just Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, like our branching extinct cousins that we all have 5% of their DNA, all had a relationship with pigeons. And so in terms of Alphonse Much's point, what can we do with art now? What would it be to make art something that's frontier and important and significant and change society? And I argue that we can change our relationship with pigeons in particular, but then in animals in general. And it's that shifted relationship through this more kind of collaborative and appreciative notion of intelligence that we can achieve that. However, again, it's just the pigeons pecking on a screen. There's never been a study of a chimp doing a self-portrait, right? So maybe there's just a limit. Animals are neat, but stabbing a termite mound and pulling termites really that impressive? I don't know, maybe, right? However, there's also, so then we look at the vast scope of human art. We have music, we have literature. Did I mention we have music? And so there's an emerging thing where we're discovering more and more animals that can keep a beat. And so far, some of these animals are the sea lion. Peter Gabriel jammed with a baboon monkey named Kanzi in the 1990s. And then a fascinating thing I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. Snowball, the cockatoo, went viral for keeping a rhythm to the Backstreet Boys in 2009. But then Snowball subsequently changed science. And I'm going to tell you about that right now. I'll go back. We have to see it. You may feel free to look as well. It's fine. Is there a better rhythm than a sea lion? What do you think? Oh. She is not passing that audition. All right, so there's one example, right, of rhythm and such. And then, once more should do it. Yes. This is Kanzi Chimpanzee with Nita Gabriel in 1991. Funky. And then that takes us to Snowball, the cockatoo. So a little about Snowball. Snowball was dancing with the Backstreet Boys in 2009. It went viral. It's like, ha ha ha, that's so neat. But subsequently, Snowball became the subject of intense scientific research and scrutiny, as Snowball then exhibited 14 unique dance moves, or styles, if you will, that Snowball discovered on its own. There was no human intermediary like, hey, Snowball, do the robot. And check this out. It's quite impressive. One of my favorite scientific studies ever. Thank you, Snowball. But 14 dance moves. And that's just through Snowball, the cockatoo's natural discovery process. So, in honor of Snowball, and what I hope is a new possibility that we can, without using language, using rhythm and our shared musicality with all creatures, I'm going to summon our next performance up via a shell, which I want you to go in the back and take back, and he will tell us about his new piece. He's an Emmy-winning producer, and he's debuting a new piece inspired by pigeon data today. But hold on, I have to summon it first. It won't work without a summoning. Poseidon is not angry. Come up on stage, will you? Sorry to ruin the vibe, dude. Just making sure it works. Golden ratio. It's supposed to work. I took a bunch of spreadsheets of pigeon data that Andrew McGregor sent me and turned it into a fairly abstract piece of music. Did I make the music? The pigeons make the music. I blame the pigeons. But that was what you asked me to do. There was an initial attempt to kind of conform this data into conventional, people ideas of harmony, and it started sounding soft and new agey and not very pigeon-like. So I embraced the chaos, and that's where we're at now.
Oh.
I don't know, maybe we should play it. I'll answer questions or talk further about abstractions. Play a little show. I'll get one down. I can continue to stand up here. was kind of hoping no one would clap so I could do the, maybe this isn't it for you guys. Kids are going to love it thing from Back to the Future. It's abstract, but a thing that I really enjoyed about sorting the data this way was kind of observing how these little kind of, I don't know, microsystems would come in and out. And you would see, like, what you can interpret as ostinato and these little, like, melismatic moments in music. And I don't know, it's not so much different from this kind of, like, I don't know, raw soup that, like, it would create music out of as a human being. And, of course, a lot of it's arbitrarily interpreted. And some of it was how quickly I can retype the data into a synthesizer. And some of it was on mushrooms for, I don't know. Thank you, Jed. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. This concludes our formal program. We're all here to talk. Please explore the pigeon art and do take a shell. If you want a shell, just grab it. Loot the MAMBA Museum. And then I hope as you go forward this week, you can find a moment to find a groove with an animal. Thank you. I'm so grateful you're all here sharing this space. And thank you to the Hall of Theosophy for hosting us. Talk to Justin and Ian. And Justin is directing Antigone, which opens June 26th. If you're a fan of Sophocles. Yeah, you'll become one. Anyway, thank you again. I'm so grateful. My name is Andrew McGregor. Any questions, let me know. Thanks.
Yes.